Welcome back to West Texas View.
Welcome back to the West Texas View. I'm Johnny Lou Avery, and my guest today is Trina Gillette, and she's talking about the Shattered Clays for Shattered Dreams. This is an event that's put on to call attention to the life-changing dangers of driving and drinking. And Trina, before we get started on talking about some of these other things that have to do with this special event, I want us to talk about you. You were a friend of Bryce who was killed in a drunk driving situation, and you were involved with him through church work. You went to church camp, but you were also a dear friend of his fiancée. Is that correct?
Yes.
And so she was left without him. You were left without a friend, and all of this, and he was such a popular young man. And so this whole group of people that loved him then had their eyes open when this accident happened. And so you feel so strongly that you were willing to come up and talk about this event, even though you really weren't expected to have to do this.
Yes.
But I want you to tell a little bit about the accident itself.
Okay. What I recall, I was a freshman at TCU, and I got a call from my friend. It was late at night, October 1st, and she just said that Bryce had been in an accident. So it was just kind of left to wait and see. And then I got another phone call saying that he had passed away, and then got a little bit more details saying that him and two of his friends were involved in a drunk driving accident, and a Jeep swerved over in their lane. They were on the highway, and they overcorrected and ended up hitting a tree. One guy, or two of the guys, died on instance, and one guy lived, and if I believe correctly, the one that lived was the driver. And it was really rough. They were all three best friends, and they knew several people, so it just affected pretty much the whole town. So whenever it got out, it was a little heartbreaking.
Yeah, I can imagine. And the interesting thing, though, is from this disaster, this very sad event, has come about a program that is reaching the Trent, Merkel, Breckenridge, Early, Anson, and it just keeps spreading out to all those public schools, bringing this very graphic program into the school system to make them understand that this is not a joke, and this is not something that we can take lightly, because we're really talking about life and death.
Yes.
And so I am so pleased that people, the parents particularly, the family, didn't just wallow in their sorrow, but said, let's try to make something good out of this really bad thing that happened. So they formed this this shooting contest that sportsmen and hunters really enjoy, and has lots and lots of good things going to it. In fact, there's guns given away. There's a lot of awards, like the top shooter gets $1,500 prize, which is, as we've already talked about. But also, one of the things, though, that I wanted to go back to the family is that the family is so passionate about this that they foot a lot of this bills out of their own pocket, so that when we have this event, then it goes into these programs for the schools, so that kids can really understand what's going on. When you heard about this, had you already made a commitment not to drive and drink, or was this something that really woke you up?
Well, being a freshman in high school, I mean, I didn't have
college.
a car. I mean, college, yeah. I didn't have a car, so I wasn't able to do that. But I never agreed with that, and I always was the person that gave people rides and stuff like that. So after this happened, it just really made my awareness for everybody else just to be safer, because you don't want that to happen two times. And being young and everything like that, you have so many other things to look forward to that you just can't. You don't want to be the person that to blame for that kind of stuff. So,
and whether it's in your car or someone else is driving and runs into you, the consequences are still the same.
Yes.
And there is so much attention focused on this through the law enforcement agencies now, that there's no soft pedaling the people that are arrested for drunk driving.
Yeah.
The book, in other words, is thrown at them, and should be.
Yes.
But let me just talk a little bit about some of the facts surrounding drunk driving. Do we have time for me to do this? Alcohol is involved in nearly half of all traffic crashes. Alcohol injures more than 1 million people each year. There are approximately one fatal alcohol-related motor vehicle crash every 30 minutes. And although 16 to 24-year-olds comprise only 15% of licensed drivers, they're involved in more than 25% of all fatal alcohol-related crashes. Nearly 1/4 of the fatal injured teenage drivers were drinking prior to their crashes, with nearly 2/3 of these legally intoxicated. Alcohol-related crashes, injuries, and fatalities cost society at least $46 billion a year in lost productivity, medical cost, property damage, and other direct expenditures, and over $5 billion of that is for health care alone. The person that lived, as I understand it, in this crash, had a pretty long
sentence,
but also a long recovery time.
Yes.
There was some injuries that caused.
Yeah, him losing 2 of his best friends and then having to be the one that people were pointing the finger at. It made it hard for him. So yeah, it was a very long journey. More than 85% of the fatally injured, intoxicated drivers were not wearing their seat belts. Were they wearing their seat belts? I can't remember, but I believe they were.
Okay.
So.
Research shows that sober drivers wear their seat belts at significantly higher rate than drivers who have been drinking. And so just knowing that and having your own personal testimony is a very touching thing. And I can imagine what his fiancée and his friends thought afterwards. They thought, this is never going to happen to us. But then we forget, and we slide back into our old ways. And so we're going to take a break now. We're going to come back, and we're going to talk a little bit more about how they get involved in this and where they get the tickets. We'll be back in just a minute and continue this conversation. Thanks for joining us.
Stay tuned. West Texas View will be right back.